I am elated to host a fireside chat with Michael Acton Smith. Michael is co-founder and co-executive chairman of Calm, the leading mental wellness brand with the #1 app for sleep meditation and relaxation. For the last 10 years, Michael has been one of the great UK entrepreneur success stories, and during this time, over 100 million people have downloaded the Calm app. Throughout his career, Michael has founded multiple businesses. He was the founder of Mind Candy and co-founder of Firebox.com. He also founded Silicon Drinkabout and Berwick Stock, a boutique music festival in the UK. In 2014, Michael was appointed Officer of the Order of the British Empire in the New Year Honors of Services to the creative industries. Long fascinated by neuroscience, flow states, and mental fitness, he is passionate about spreading meditation as a simple but valuable skill around the world, a subject that captivates me and I'm sure many of you. Michael Acton Smith, welcome to Pangeo. Let's get started.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
So, Michael, you're a successful entrepreneur. How do you define entrepreneurship? What do you think it takes to endure as a creator in the business?
I love being an entrepreneur. I love startups and I love business. It's a hard question to define, though. What exactly is an entrepreneur? I think risk is an important part of it. I think having a big, crazy, wild vision is important. You know, when I was little, I saw that video that Steve Jobs put together, that advert. Do you remember the one, the crazy ones, the misfits,
Yes.
the round pegs in the square holes? And that really resonated with me. People that wanted to shake things up, that didn't like the status quo. And I think that's what entrepreneurs can do. And it can genuinely change the world. And you can also do it internally. I think they call them intrapreneurs, people inside organizations that want to make bold moves and be ambitious and shape things. So it's a wonderful thing and a great way to go through life.
That's wonderful, and such a great concept with entrepreneurs, because we can all be that every single day.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing that. So, Michael, you've openly shared the highs and lows of your personal and professional journey that led you to create the Calm app. Can you share that story with our audience today, please?
How long have we got?
You take as long as you need.
You know, I was thinking and reflecting the other day. I've been running companies for a quarter of a century now. It makes me feel very old. And it's been a roller coaster journey, extraordinary highs, crushing lows, sometimes on the same day. And, I've learned a huge amount along that journey. So the very short version is that my previous company, Moshi Monsters, was an online world for children, grew to about 80 million kids all around the world, toys, books, magazines, movies, grew like this, like a rocket ship. And then it came down. And it was very, very stressful and very difficult. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't exercising. And like a lot of great businesses, they come from scratching one's own itch, one's own problem. So my good friend Alex Chu taught me meditation, and he taught me to breathe and step back from the chaos and the noise of every day. And developing a meditation practice has been one of, if not the most valuable skill in my life. It's helped me get perspective and awareness. It's improved my sleep, my relationships, my ability to lead and manage teams. So that's a compressed version of how Calm started, a little acorn. We bought the domain name calm.com. And the starting point then and still now is, could we build a brand that reduces stress in the world, that brings more calm to 8 billion people on planet Earth? Because we think calm's a superpower. And in this very stressful life we lead, to be able to just take a step back and pause is unbelievably valuable. So we want to build one of the most valuable and meaningful companies in the whole world.
Absolutely. And one thing that you said, it resonates with me. Innovation is so personal. It really is. It has to connect with you at the human level for you to do something about it. So fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. So, Michael, challenges to mental fitness and burnout really took the center stage with global pandemic, and no one was immune from it. And the data shows that it impacts every ethnic and age group. What did you see as the biggest struggle for people during that time and beyond? How did you personally cope with that challenge? And did you see the changes in the way people were using the Calm app?
My goodness. Yeah, what a past.
It's a loaded question.
3 big questions, but what an extraordinary few years we've all collectively been through. None of us were ready or prepared for this. Calm had a front row seat to watch, and the biggest thing we saw was just extraordinary growth in the number of people signing up to the app, looking for ways to support their mental health of themselves and their loved ones. We've grown to well over 100 million downloads now. And I think there were so many things we weren't prepared for. One was just the huge shift in how we worked, the change from office to remote working, people with kids and working from small environments at home, very, very challenging to adapt to. Secondly, the loneliness and the isolation. Human beings are social animals. We were disconnected from our tribe, and being on Zoom every day was definitely not the same thing. Thirdly, the anxiety, the uncertainty, the stress around what was going to happen every day, new information constantly coming at us. So it's no wonder we're now in this mental health crisis, and people have been struggling with everything from depression to insomnia to anxiety. So very, very challenging times. We have been trying to do our best to support everyone we can on a personal and a business level. And I did several things myself to try and support, but it wasn't easy, and we've learned a lot as Calm, but very challenging few years.
Absolutely, and it goes to prove that never let a crisis go to waste, right? Use that to fuel innovation and to do good work for communities globally. So thank you for doing that.
Just on that point, that's a really valid point. Mental health was growing, the awareness around it in society before the pandemic. But my goodness, the pandemic shone a very bright spotlight on it. And that has been hugely positive. Now people take it much more seriously, as they should.
Absolutely. As they should. You're absolutely right. So Michael, I have 2 teenage boys. And they are constantly hooked to their devices. I'm sure it's not news to many. But it seems like today everybody is hopefully connected to their devices, living by the ping of a text, a message, or a Slack. Do you experience this? And how do you set practical boundaries as someone running a thriving global business?
I love technology, like everybody. I love my mobile phone. What a magical, valuable device. But most of us use it mindlessly. We pick it up multiple times a day, sometimes hundreds of times a day without even being consciously aware. And we get caught in these loops. We check Instagram or Twitter or TikTok and then we wonder where the time went. And we don't often feel better than when we picked it up. So how can we use our devices mindfully? How can we use them for us instead of against us? I think that is the big, important challenge. And there's several things I try and do to be a little more conscious and a little bit more aware about how I use that powerful device. One is that I've stopped using my phone in bed. Something like 60% of people reach for their phone the first thing they do when they wake up. And what does that do to our brain? And you know what? I'm not perfect. I do it every now and then as well. But what does that do to our brain? We haven't even had a chance to kind of get out of bed and get ready for the day. And already we're marinating in the toxic news cycle and what's going on Instagram. So that's one. Secondly, whenever I pick up my phone, I try and catch myself and say, do I really need to use it right now? Or am I just doing it out of habit? Am I becoming a dopamine frazzled zombie checking that next update and just being a bit more thoughtful? Thirdly, different types of work are needed at different times throughout the day. And often we need to go into deep, deep work and really, really immerse ourselves Now, how can we do that when we're being pinged every few minutes by our device? We won't get into that beautiful state of flow. So putting your phone on airplane mode when you're trying to do that deep thinking is really valuable. And then the final one I'd say is be thoughtful about the notifications. Who you allow to tap you on the digital shoulder multiple times a day. And I would say if you can restrict that to other human beings, that's better than the AI or the algorithms trying to get you to come back to apps. So small changes that can make a big impact on your well-being and your productivity.
Absolutely. I just learned a trick. I have never tried putting my phone on the airplane mode. Well, outside of being on the flight, when I'm on the flights. So I'm going to try that and teach that to my kids as well. So thank you for sharing that tip. So Michael, the world has undeniably become a more divisive place. And that has created an added layer of stress. I think every generation of leaders, they have a new challenge and a new crisis to lead through. And we have our own fair share. And you and I both believe in the power of empathy and kindness. How do you practice those things on a daily basis? And is this something you encourage amongst your team? How do you do all of that?
Very much so. You know, business is fascinating and it's fast-paced and it's easy to lose sight of the human aspect. You know, we're all human beings working together on a collective mission. So I think developing a meditation practice, being a bit more mindful about how I lead has been very valuable. And so we do a number of things at Calm. We try and practice what we preach. One thing we did pre-pandemic and we started again is a 10-minute daily Calm meditation every morning. Often people would come into the workplace and they'd be spilling their coffee, doing their first email before they even started the day, not even acknowledging their colleagues, and getting on the same level, meditating and breathing together for 10 minutes was really valuable. Very strong connection. I think it was part of the secret sauce of Calm in the early days. And now in a remote first environment, we still do it. We do 10 a.m. Pacific time every day, a 10-minute meditation. We also encourage Zoom-free days every now and then. We have mental health days to look after the team. And the final one I'd say is a Slack channel we've got called Warm Fuzzies, which is where we share all the incredible stories we receive from around the world of people whose lives have been changed by our product. And I think this is relevant for every business out there. Whatever you're doing or creating, you're touching lives and you're improving people's well-being and health and happiness and productivity. So share those with the team. And during our big all hands meetings, we'd read a couple out and it was, you know, beautiful and goosebump inducing.
Isn't that fabulous? You again gave me a couple of great ideas that I think we're going to try. My team is taking notes vigorously in the background. It is the Slack channel, Warm Fuzzies or whatever you call it. It's just bringing the customer in the room with you, right? Yes. And having people see the humanity, having people see what impact we are making as a company every single day in people's lives, in our communities. And we as a business at GP, we are all about democratizing access, rise of all, right? Creating financial well-being access. So I think we can absolutely do a lot with that idea within GP as well. But I do have an extra question for you there, which is, I really like the idea of 10 minutes of meditation every day, 10 a.m. Pacific. How do you do that? Do you put it on people's calendars? Is everybody in it? How do you monitor or not monitor? How do you encourage people to make time, make those 10 minutes?
Well, first thing I'll say is it's not mandatory. You know, I don't think
you can't force it, right?
Exactly. Not very mindful to force everyone to do it. We put it on the calendar. We let everyone in the company know it's available. And if you want to join, great. If you can't, no problem. Some days it's just a few people. Some days it's dozens and dozens of the team that check in. Before every group meeting, every all hands where hundreds of us come together, we always start those with a group meditation. And I think that's a lovely tradition we have within the business.
That's wonderful to hear. Wonderful ideas there. Michael, do you think, go ahead.
Just to sort of build on that, a few years ago, I think that would have been seen as very strange. I remember chatting to a journalist who laughed at that and it sounded a little bit new age and Californian. And again, to our chat earlier about the pandemic, mental health has front and center now, and people are looking for ways to support their teams. And I think the teams will appreciate and value this. Even if they don't join in every day, the fact that their employer cares about their well-being and is interested in them, their whole person, not just the amount of work output they put every day.
Exactly. And isn't that the biggest joyful shift that we have seen as leaders, where you don't anymore have to make a case why people's mental and physical health is important. It's there. It's a given. It's table stakes. Everybody's in it together, right? Caring for it together. So that's music to my ears as an HR professional, right? I don't have to make a case for it anymore. Everybody, I mean, it's there. So I think it's sharing that. Yeah.
It was a hard sell years ago. It was never discussed in board meetings,
exactly,
or in the CEO suite. And now we've seen, 4,000 companies have brought Calm into their workplaces to support their mental health. It's the fastest growing part of our business, and you must see it as well internally and with the many companies around the world you support.
We do, absolutely. So do you think, Michael, it's realistic for people to achieve some level of inner peace and calm, even for extreme type A's? And what have you learned? What have you seen in action there?
Well, I'm a good example. I'm definitely a type A, and I've definitely changed the way I lead and also the way I lead my life. I was a very frazzled, frantic entrepreneur trying to squeeze every last minute out of every day. And you know what? I could do that in the short term, but it had an impact long term. I was not healthy. I was not always happy. I was not sleeping well. My relationships suffered. And I think it is possible to do great things in the world, to change the world, but do it without losing your sanity and your mind and your health. And so I believe having a mindful meditation practice has made me a better person and improved all my relationships in life. What's the point of becoming a billionaire if you're not happy, if everyone thinks you're an idiot? And I think having a little bit more structure and balance in life is incredibly important.
So true. So true. And to launch such a successful endeavor undoubtedly took a team with a committed, innovative mindset. Can you talk about your leadership team, Michael, your employees, and what you look for when you hire? And also what you look for in your partners? What are the leadership styles that you think are most impactful? So again, a loaded question, kind of threefold. Your leadership team, your employees, how do you hire? Also, what do you look for your partners? And what leadership styles do you think are most important?
Well, we have grown rapidly over the last few years. We have hundreds of people all around the world. We're a remote first company now. And we started just a few years ago in a 1-bedroom apartment in San Francisco. So it's been an amazing journey. And what we look for then in teams is similar to what we look for now. We built a fantastic team, and we look for people who are big believers in the mission, who want to shake things up, who want to change the world, who want to make the world happier and healthier, and believe in this mental health crisis that the world is in. But at the same time, we want to find people who are hungry and ambitious and driven and not content with the status quo. And so when those two things come together, it's really special. And we have one unique value in Calm within our culture. And not many companies have this, and people often roll their eyes, but I personally love it. It's the word magic. It's that kind of X factor, that sprinkling of fairy dust on everything you do and the way you think and every product you put out in the world. How can you elevate it? How can you do something different? The whimsy, the surprise and the delight that makes something joyful rather than just humdrum. And I think it's a very important and special part of our culture.
Absolutely. And it is so interesting the way you're defining Calm's culture. That's exactly how I define GP's culture. And when people ask me, what's the culture like? And I tell them it's magical. That's the word I use all the time because there's no other way to define it. So I find it interesting that you share that in your culture as well.
Oh, so good to hear. Kindred spirits. And you know what? Some people may run away and not want to work in a business that defines things like that. But the right sort of people will connect and resonate and be drawn in.
Couldn't agree with you more. So, Michael, my favorite life lesson quote is from Deepak Chopra, who states that the best use of imagination is creativity, and the worst use of imagination is anxiety. And I think we are hardwired as humans to worry about survival mechanism, but that mindset can also be paralyzing. So instead of imagining the worst, this quote reminds me to look at every situation as an opportunity and apply our creative brains to uncover new ways of working. So how do you look at this situation? What's your perspective on this?
It's a great quote. And, some of the misconceptions around meditation and mindfulness are that you don't worry about anything. You just sit in bliss all day long, not getting any work done, not changing the world. And I think that's hugely incorrect. But at the other end of the spectrum, we get caught in these loops and people worry so much that they change their brain chemistry and they become depressed and anxious. And there's a happy medium between the two. And I worry, of course I do, because without worry, we don't change and we don't move forward. It's about getting the balance right and being thoughtful and conscious and aware of where we put our attention. One very simple way of thinking about it is there are some things in life we can't change. Yet many of us will spend most of our lives worrying about those things and stressing unnecessarily. And there are some things that we can change. And if we put our attention on the latter and not the former, that's where freedom and joy and progress comes from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And only for a minute, if I may go back to the way you were describing Calm's culture as magical, doing it in the remote first environment is no easy task.
Correct.
How do you accomplish that?
Oh, well, an office space is great because you can, put a lot of symbols and art and furniture around the space to create your culture. It's much, much harder to do remote first, but it's not impossible. And so you can try and weave your culture into every Zoom meeting you have. You can send physical boxes and care packages to your team. You can now, we're coming out of the pandemic and we're in this kind of hybrid space, still meet up. So we encourage teams to come together and have dinners and brainstorming sessions. An important part of our culture, even though we're remote first, is a big annual get together. And we've been to Hawaii in the past and Ojai. We've got another one coming for the end of this year. And so those touch points, not every day, but every now and then, are really, really valuable to kind of reinforce your culture.
That's wonderful to hear. So at GP, Michael, we are fueled by our mission to break down barriers to global business and enable opportunities for everyone, everywhere. That's our mission. And we regularly revisit this in our core values, which are the bedrock of our culture. In doing this, we have placed a renewed, significant focus on creating a culture that's inclusive, where people can show up as their whole and best self. Can you share your views on inclusivity and the impact on innovation?
Yes, inclusivity is very important at Calm as well. And I'm thrilled to hear it's a key part, a bedrock of the business that you're building. Allowing people to show up at work as their authentic, true selves is so valuable. If not, how do they thrive? How do they take risks? How do they build strong relationships with their colleagues? It creates toxic and unpleasant environments. So I think it's a very important thing. And so we teach our managers to be mindful, and we have tremendous respect for diversity and inclusion and belonging at Calm. And I think tapping into different cultures, different ideas, alternative ways of thinking creates healthier, more vibrant workspaces. It's how you play at the edges and come up with those non-obvious ideas that are the ones that move society and business forward.
So let's talk about that idea generation. Where do the ideas come from at Calm?
Well, we try and create an environment where anyone can step forward with an idea. And to do that, you have to create a culture and an environment where people aren't afraid to put forward risky or strange ideas. You know, a new idea is like a fragile butterfly, and it can be very easily trampled underfoot of sensibleness and process. And we don't do things like that around here thinking. So we try and create that environment where, you know, different ideas are encouraged, because you never know what will work. And when things don't work, that's okay. You know, as long as people learn from what they tried and then can apply them to new ideas in the future, I think that's really, really healthy.
That's wonderful to hear. So you have the world's happiest app. I'm sure it just feels wonderful, first of all. And I'm a proponent of finding happiness and joy at work. I think, Michael, especially coming out of this time of pandemic, now living through just different realities of economic hardships and the headwinds that we are facing globally, the concept of joy at work has a special meaning. It's not just about making money or earning your wages. It is so much more than that. You know, this concept of YOLO, you only live once, has really surfaced up and became real for a lot of us, right, through living through this time. So in fact, one of the things that I'm most proud of at GP is we did our first employee engagement survey a few months ago, and there was an NPS of 91%.
Wow.
I'd never seen that ever, Michael, in my career in human resources. So that's joy at work for me, to see these many happy, fulfilled employees who are so attached to our purpose and mission, but are also here to solve hard problems. You know, being in startups, as you said, it's not a piece of cake. Like, everybody has to come together around a mission and give their best and produce their best. So we have got more than our shared appreciation of mindful moments in common. I see that through our conversations so far. So can you share what role you think leaders must play in helping their teams finding joy and fulfillment at work? And what are the responsibilities of the employees to do the same?
Well, I love that you mentioned, you know, joy at work. And I think this new generation coming into the workforce over the last sort of decade or so expects so much more from their employer, don't they? You know, in the olden days, it was pretty much a very transactional affair of a paycheck and a 9 to 5. And this new generation, they want mission. They want to know how their company is going to show up and positively change the world. And they want to have fun and joy at the same time. Not easy, all these things to balance, but important if you're going to attract the top talent to your company. So at Calm, we think very carefully about this. It's why, you know, magic is part of our culture. It's why we want to make the world not just healthier, but happier at the same time as well. So a few examples to give is mental health is a very serious subject. It's very, very important. You're dealing with sometimes life and death situations, but can you bring a little bit of lightness and playfulness into that? Because that is how human beings connect, and that is how they kind of thrive and find joy. So when GDPR legislation came out, very serious, a little bit boring. What important, my lawyers are listening. Yeah. we turned the GDPR legislation into a sleep story. We got someone to read out the 30 pages and we put it out there into the world for people to listen to when they went to sleep. And we had hundreds of press articles and people thought it was fantastic. We've brought wonderful celebrities into Calm to show that mental health, you know, is something that is relevant to everybody, whether it's Matthew McConaughey or Harry Styles. So I think showing up and showing that your culture can be joyful, your products and your solutions can be joyful, helps people thrive at work.
That's wonderful. It's such an interesting way to experiment, right? Turning that compliance story into a sleep story for Calm app. What are the most and best used features of the application, Michael? Well, you can share your favorites or your customers' favorites.
So we started with meditation. We have a wonderful teacher called Tamara Levitt who created a unique 10-minute meditation every single day. And people loved it because it was different. You know, meditation felt like this big, scary unknown. And she interwove simple, valuable, relatable, inspiring stories that people loved. And so that is still an incredibly popular part of the Calm app. But the next big growth area was sleep. As I just mentioned, so many people are struggling with sleep every single night. And we created these bedtime tales that mix music and magic and sound effects and soporific narration to help people drift off to slumber every single evening. And they've been a very, very popular part of the app. They're probably my favorite because even though I don't struggle with sleep, I love hearing these different tales from different stories all around the world.
Yeah, that's wonderful, for sure. So Michael, we witnessed an extraordinary outpouring of emotions with Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth's passing last month. Can you tell us what being appointed Officer of the Order of the British Empire in the 2014 New Year Honors for Services to the creative industries mean for you?
Good question. I was incredibly humbled and very, very proud when I got this very stiff, serious-looking letter from Buckingham Palace. I thought it had been a joke, and I got invited to the palace, and I was given the award by Prince Charles, now King Charles. So yeah, just amazing to think that this little kid who doodled in notebooks and had absurd, ridiculous ideas would one day be honored in that way was an incredible feeling.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So Michael, technology can be such a powerful force in fostering human connection. You touched on it earlier in our conversation. Can you share your thoughts on how technology can continue to be applied for greater good of the society? And talk about any dimension of life and world.
Well, I'm a huge believer in the power of technology, and it is transforming so many different industries and the way we live our lives. There's a wonderful book called Factfulness, and it's easy if we just absorb the news and social media to think the world is falling apart. And there is a lot that's wrong that we need to change, but there's also more that's going right. If you look at, key metrics of a lot of different areas of health and education. So I think focusing on that and understanding the facts and the data is important, and technology is a key driver of that. So one example is just healthcare, how we are, until recently, have pushed up life expectancy massively by decades and decades in the last 100 years. What's interesting to note, though, in the last few years, it's been coming down for the first time. Almost this state of abundance we've reached, where now we have too much food in the West and people are suffering from overeating rather than undereating and malnourishment. So I think we have to be thoughtful and careful. Just like we use our mobile phones, we have to use technology in positive, mindful ways rather than just stumbling mindlessly into it. And AI is a great example. It can transform the world in many ways, but if we're not careful, it could have serious threats to the way we live our lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this next question is a selfish one. Being an HR leader, I would love to learn a bit more from you on, as a CEO, what do you expect from the function overall? And what do you lean on your HR leaders the most for yourself, for your own leadership, for the teams globally at COM?
Well, we did not have a HR function until relatively recently. And I think that was a big mistake. I would encourage companies to start thinking about their HR and people team sooner than they think they need one. We brought on board a brilliant chief people officer, Scott, who has a wonderful reputation in the industry, and he's built a great team. And he's basically ensured our culture is lived throughout the company. He ensures that everyone is getting the training and the support that they need. He deals with a lot of things that that often are not seen as glamorous or sexy in a business, but are incredibly important to keep a company humming and moving. And one of the great things he's taught me is in one-to-ones, we often ask the question, how are you? And we'll often get the answer, fine, good, all's okay. And then you get straight down to business. And then he often will pause and say, come on, how are you really?
How are you really? Yes, that's the question.
And then he'll have a pause, and then he'll get the real answer. And I think that's so interesting. And I think all leaders, anyone on this call, should try that with their teams, because that's what we really want to know. What's going on at home? What's going on in your head? What's really happening? Because unless we understand that, how can we hold people accountable? How can we know how to nurture and support them on their career development and what they're working on? So understanding the whole person. And I think that's been a great question that's helped me a lot.
Yeah, that is wonderful. And congratulations on hiring Scott. I'm sure he's a wonderful culture, talent leader who's going to help the company get to the next level of success. So, Michael, what do you say to anyone who wants to go out there, dream big, break through borders and boundaries, and really change the game for themselves, for their companies, and for societies in general?
I would say take a deep breath and go for it. Just go for it. You know, life is short. It's not a dress rehearsal. If you want to make change, you can be the instigator of that, whether it is externally in setting up your own business or becoming an activist, or doing it within the confines of your own company and structure that you're in. You know, if you don't have big dreams can't come true. So yeah, shake that snow globe and go and change the world.
That is wonderful. Michael, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure speaking with you. I have learned so much in the last few minutes. So thank you for making time for us. I hope our audience get a lot of these nuggets of wisdom that you have shared with us, and we all learn from it. So I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
What a wonderful conversation. I've enjoyed it immensely. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.